I had a friend named Zay. A while ago, he passed away in a car accident. We were around the same age. One night, I had the strangest dream. In the dream, I was lying in a desolate mountain area. The sky was a dull gray, and there was a huge leaf covering my body, making it hard to breathe. Then someone called my name. I turned around, and it was Jay. He grinned at me and said,
"Come on, I'll take you somewhere really fun."
In the dream, I didn't remember he was dead. I didn't feel scared at all. I just felt like I hadn't seen him in so long, and I wanted to follow him. I lifted the heavy leaf off my body and stood up. But after just a few steps, I tripped over something and almost fell. G laughed and urged,
"Hurry up, we don't have much time."
As we walked, I noticed a big rock ahead. He told me to push it away. I thought, there's no way I can move that. But when I touched it, it rolled aside easily, far too easily. The air grew colder, and soon we reached a small cliff. G looked excited.
"We're almost there. Once you climb over, the view is amazing."
Suddenly, I heard a faint phone ringing. I started looking around for the sound. G's smile faded. He frowned and snapped,
"Move, we're running out of time."
I didn't know why, but I felt a strong need to answer that call. Somehow I knew I had to pick it up. I didn't respond to him. I just kept turning around, trying to find my phone. His expression turned cold. He grabbed my wrist, hard, and tried to pull me toward the cliff. In that moment, a powerful instinct kicked in. I yanked my arm back and shouted, "I don't want to." And then, as if someone switched off a TV, everything went black with a sharp click. I jolted awake. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. I wasn't in my bed. I was standing out on my balcony, my hands gripping the top of the railing, half my body already leaning over the edge. One more inch, and I would have fallen. My real phone was ringing nonstop on the nightstand inside my room. That's when everything clicked. The leaf in my dream was my blanket. The branch I tripped over was the small table beside my bed. The rock I pushed was the sliding door to the balcony. And that cliff was the railing I almost climbed over. My legs gave out and I collapsed onto the floor, shaking. Only one thought kept repeating in my mind. If that phone call hadn't pulled me back, I would have followed Jay. A young man was waiting alone on a remote mountain road. After a long wait, bus number 44 finally arrived. When he got on, he noticed the driver, a young woman with a warm, gentle smile that instantly put him at ease. There were more than 30 passengers, all quiet as the bus headed deeper into the mountains. Suddenly, two men jumped into the road and forced the bus to stop. They climbed aboard, pulled out knives, and began robbing everyone. More than 30 people, but not a single person resisted. They kept their heads down, pretending not to see. The driver, afraid someone would get hurt, stepped forward and asked everyone to hand over their belongings. One middle-aged man refused and was beaten until he gave in. When the robbers finished, it looked like they were leaving. But then one of them grabbed the driver and dragged her off the bus. She screamed for help, but no one moved. Some pretended to sleep. Some stared out the window. Someone even held back a relative who tried to stand up. Only the young man ran after her, but he was unarmed and was quickly stabbed and knocked to the ground. Her desperate screams echoed through the mountains until the attackers finally fled. After a while, the driver staggered back, covered in dirt, tears, and bruises. She stood at the door, looking at the passengers who still refused to meet her eyes. Their silence was colder than the night. Her expression shifted from pain to anger, and then to emptiness. She wiped her tears, returned to the driver's seat, and started the bus. The injured young man limped over, apologized, and tried to get back on. But she refused. She threw his luggage out, closed the door, and drove away without explaining why. He walked for a long time until he saw a police cruiser parked by the roadside. The officers were staring down a cliff. Below them lay the wreck of a bus. Bus number 44 went off the edge, one officer said. No survivors. The young man froze, but only for a moment. His shock slowly turned into bitter understanding. He knew exactly what had happened. The driver hadn't lost hope because of 2 criminals. She had lost hope because of 30 silent passengers.
When I was in college, I heard this story from my friend Kentaro. He loved fishing, especially in remote mountain streams where almost no one ever went. One summer, he found a spot so deep in the mountains that even he hesitated. He first drove as far as he could, but the road eventually narrowed into something closer to an animal trail. From there, he had to continue on foot. The path was dangerous. He told me he had to cross cliffs, climb over loose rocks, and even saw signs of bears along the way. Only after all that did he finally reach the river he wanted to fish in. That day, he flipped over rocks along the riverbank to collect aquatic insects for bait, then quickly began fishing. And he was on fire. Within 3 hours, he caught 15, maybe 16 fish. He knew he couldn't take them all home, and definitely couldn't eat that many, but he kept catching them anyway. He said it was the best fishing of his life. So good he forgot about time entirely. By the time he realized the surroundings had grown dim, it was already close to dusk. Knowing it was dangerous to stay any longer, he packed up to head back down. That was when he felt something behind him. He turned and saw a little girl standing with her back to him. He took a cautious step closer, intending to ask why she was up there alone. But when she turned her head toward him, he almost dropped everything he was holding. It was the face of an old woman smiling so widely it looked like her muscles were twitching. A smile stretched far beyond anything natural. Kentaro thought she might be sick, so he forced himself to stay calm and asked gently,
"Ma'am, what are you doing here?"
The old woman only whispered one phrase over and over.
Until when? Until when?
Thinking she might be mentally unstable, he tried to end the conversation and leave. Then her voice suddenly changed, as if several people were speaking at once, layered and distorted.
Until when? Will you live?
A chill shot straight up his spine. He said that in that moment he knew this thing wasn't human. He ran. He sprinted down the mountain trail faster than he'd ever run in his life. And the whole way down, he could still hear her muttering behind him, soft, breathy whispers that wouldn't stop. When Kentaro finished telling me this story, he sighed in frustration. He complained that it was an amazing fishing spot, and now he could never go back. But as he was telling the story, his expression slowly changed into that same twitching, almost cramping smile he described on the old woman's face. My knees were shaking before I even realized it. A short while later, Kentaro killed himself. There was a man who often worked late. One night, he rushed to the bus stop, unsure if the last bus would even come. His home was far away, deep in a remote area. He didn't want to walk all the way back, and he definitely didn't want to spend money on a taxi. So he waited, hoping for a miracle. Just as he was about to give up, he saw headlights appearing in the distance. A bus was coming. Relieved, he waved it down and quickly got on. But the moment he stepped inside, something felt wrong. For such a late, remote route, the last bus should have been almost empty. Instead, the seats were completely full, except for one empty spot. And the entire bus was silent. Unnaturally silent. No one was talking. No one even looked up. Trying to ignore the uneasy feeling, he walked to the only empty seat and sat down. A woman was sitting beside him. Not long after he took his seat, she leaned toward him and whispered,
"You shouldn't be on this bus."
Startled, he turned to her, confused. But the woman continued, her voice barely audible.
"This bus isn't for the living."
She subtly gestured with her eyes toward the other passengers. That was when the man noticed it. A man sitting in front of him had a gaping hole in his head. A woman several rows ahead had dried blood smeared all over her mouth. Some passengers weren't even breathing. Cold terror rushed through him. He wanted to scream. He wanted to get off. But he was frozen with fear. The woman beside him whispered again,
"Don't panic. I can help you get out of here."
When the bus reached a fork in the road, she suddenly grabbed his arm, yanked open the window, and jumped out with him. They tumbled down a hill, rolling onto the dirt. From inside the bus, he heard furious shouting.
He got away.
Damn it, so close.
The man could barely breathe. After running for a while, the two finally stopped on an empty hillside to catch their breath. The man, trembling, thanked her over and over. But the woman only gave him a strange smile. Then she whispered,
Now.
No one else will fight me for you.
A university hiking club planned a high-altitude climb, taking about 8 members along. Among them was a couple, Sana and her boyfriend Taka. After reaching the mountain hut, the last stop before the summit, the weather took a sudden turn for the worse. The leader suggested canceling the summit attempt, but most of the group insisted on pushing on. Sana wasn't in good condition, so the others convinced her to stay behind at the hut and rest. She waited as the storm raged on. 1 day passed, then 2, then 3. The rain only grew heavier. She tried to stay calm, telling herself that bad weather was normal in the mountains and delays happened. By the 7th day, the team finally returned. But the moment Sana saw them, she felt her stomach drop. Everybody was back except Taka. Their faces were dark and heavy. They told her that on the first day of the ascent, disaster struck. Falling rocks, thick fog, freezing temperatures. Taka hadn't survived. That night, just before midnight, Sana heard footsteps outside. Then came the pounding on the window. When she looked, her heart froze. Taka was outside. His face was covered in blood, clothes torn, body shaking from cold. He was banging on the glass, shouting her name, begging her to come out. Sana rushed toward the door, but the others grabbed her and held her back.
That's not him!
They warned.
That's his ghost. He wants to take you with him. Don't open the door.
Trembling, Sana looked again at Taka. Mud clung to his clothes, blood dried on his chest, his skin deathly pale. Crying, she whispered through the window, begging him not to take her life. But Taka shouted back desperately.
Don't trust them. The accident happened on the first day. They were the ones who died. I'm the only one still alive. They aren't human anymore.
Sana turned slowly toward the group standing behind her. Her mind went blank. Her breath caught in her throat. Who was telling the truth? The bleeding man outside? Or the silent group inside the hut? If it were you, who would you believe?
I've never forgotten something strange that happened when I was a child. Back then, I was in elementary school, living near a quiet industrial district filled with old factories. The air always smelled like hot metal. One day I noticed something odd. An abandoned factory I passed every day suddenly had a wooden sign at the entrance. It said snack shop. The moment I stepped inside, I knew it wasn't a candy store. It looked more like a workshop, metal parts on the floor, tools hanging from the walls, dim lights overhead. The owner always wore a welder's mask. I never saw his face. He told me he was fixing a flying machine that had no engine. He said once he found the right one, the machine would work. But I never saw any flying machine there. The shop sold only one thing: chocolate wrapped in silver foil with blue letters that said Moon Chocolate. It looked cheap, but the taste was strangely good, slightly bitter outside, creamy inside. The owner warned us not to tell any adults because the chocolate wasn't approved by inspectors. But he loved kids. If you brought a new friend, he'd give you an extra chocolate. Soon, every kid in the area knew about the place. Each purchase came with a small scratch card. If a moon symbol appeared under sunlight, that meant you won. No one knew what the prize was, but we liked to imagine things. Then one day, a boy claimed he saw the moon. He showed the card to everyone, but to others it looked completely blank. The next morning, he was hit by a car on his way home. His body was found twisted, and the police never found his head. Adults called it a hit and run and refused to talk about it. Not long after, the snack shop closed. A paper on the door said it was out of business. Still, I couldn't forget the chocolate. One afternoon, I sneaked back into the abandoned factory. Deep inside, I found a round machine the size of a car with a glass dome on top. I looked inside. A glowing sphere floated in the center, its surface swirling like mist. Then, through the shifting light, I saw a face. A child's head, expressionless, drifting quietly in the glow. And it looked familiar. A few days later, I went back. But the entire building was gone, completely torn down. The ground flattened as if nothing had ever existed. I stood in the empty lot, a cold shiver running down my spine. And to this day, I can still remember the taste of that moon chocolate. Japanese horror story. The Hammer. I found a VHS tape buried in a bargain bin at a small video rental shop. The title, written in black marker, simply said The Hammer. No case, no label, just a bare cassette tossed into the corner. It only cost 100 yen, so I bought it. That night I played it. No title screen, no credits, just shaky footage that began right away. Someone was running through empty streets, breathing heavily. The camera bounced up and down like it was filmed from the runner's point of view. At first I laughed.
What the hell is this? I paid 100 yen for this garbage?
But then, something looked familiar. The streets, the lights, the buildings. It was my neighborhood. The runner turned a corner and stopped in front of an apartment building. My apartment building? I froze the tape. On screen I saw my door, my bike parked beside it, even my nameplate. Then, a loud crash shook my room. On the TV, someone started smashing the door with a hammer. Each strike perfectly in sync with the sound I was hearing in real life. My body locked up. The door rattled violently. Through the cracks, I saw a man's face, bloodshot eyes, a twisted grin, staring straight at me. On the TV, the camera showed me, standing inside my room. I stumbled backward, knocking the VCR and TV to the floor. Then, silence. No more banging. The room went completely still. After a while, I crawled to the door. No one was there. No marks, no dents, nothing. When I pulled the tape from the VCR, it was warm, like it had just been used. The title still read The Hammer. I stuffed it into a plastic bag and ran out of my apartment. I never went back for it.
It happened when I was in 6th grade. There was a boy in my class named Yamada. He talked slowly, reacted even slower, and was often the target of teasing. Looking back now, I think he might have had a slight intellectual disability. The first time we played tag was back in 3rd or 4th grade. A few of us decided to play during recess, and Yamada joined too. The rules were simple. The one who lost rock, paper, scissors became it, and had to chase the others. Anyone tagged would become the next it. But if everyone managed to get back to the classroom and sit in their seats before being caught, the current it lost the game. That day, I was it. I saw Yamada walking slowly across the playground. So I ran up and tagged him. But instead of chasing anyone, he just stood there and kept walking at the same slow pace. When the bell rang, we all returned to class, everyone except Yamada. Someone complained, he doesn't even chase people. He's so boring. A few minutes later, Yamada finally came back in. But then, out of nowhere, he walked straight toward me and swung his fist, as if he wanted to drag me off my chair. Our teacher entered the classroom at that exact moment, and the fight stopped before it began. After that day, everyone thought Yamada was weird. No one wanted to play with him anymore. He stopped talking, stopped smiling, and spent most of his time sleeping in class. Years passed, and by 6th grade, we ended up in the same class again. One morning, just as the bell rang, Yamada suddenly stood in front of my desk and shouted,
"You didn't really tag me that time. You're still it."
Then he sat down with a smug grin on his face. I froze. Was he continuing that same game from years ago? From then on, Yamada's behavior grew stranger by the day. He stared at me constantly, his eyes filled with something between mockery and madness. Even when he moved around, he never stood up. He'd drag his chair across the floor everywhere he went, even to the bathroom. Whenever our eyes met, he'd smirk like he was daring me to make a move. I couldn't stand it anymore. So, I came up with a plan. At the graduation ceremony, I'd sneak up and tag him again. That way, he'd be it forever, even after we graduated. The thought of him being angry and frustrated made me laugh. After the ceremony, I pretended not to notice him, and quickly packed up. Since Yamada's desk was a mess, I had already taken my stuff home the day before, so I could escape faster. I waited in the hallway shadows, wearing my sneakers. About 30 minutes later, Yamada appeared, dragging his overstuffed bag behind him. When he bent down to take off his indoor shoes, I rushed forward, slapped his back, and shouted,
"Got you!"
Then I ran as fast as I could. But Yamada's reaction froze my blood. He screamed, a high, piercing, inhuman sound. I turned around and saw him chasing me barefoot. His face twisted, tears streaming down, screaming,
"You're dead! I'll never forgive you! Stop running!"
His voice cracked and warped as he ran. I sprinted all the way home, laughing nervously, half thrilled, half scared. About an hour later, I heard a horrifying scream outside my window. It wasn't human. My gut told me it was Yamada. Not long after, word spread that Yamada had been hit by a truck. Witnesses said he ignored the red light and ran straight into the street. They said his body was torn apart. And the time of the accident was exactly when I'd heard that scream. No one ever found out that I had anything to do with it. But people said that before he died. Yamada was running screaming something about tag. Since that day, I've never been the same. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that familiar voice echoing in the distance.
"Don't run!"
Now, I never stand up, i.e. sitting down. I sleep sitting up. Because I'm terrified that if I ever leave my chair, he'll catch me. Maybe Yamada's still out there, still playing that same game of tag. One that will never, ever end.
Enjoyed the story? Hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And tell me what you think in the comments. More horror is on the way.